The unexpected encounter. Julian Reeves straightened his Italian silk tie with manicured fingers, surveying the charity gala with thinly veiled disdain. The grand ballroom of the Westmore Hotel glittered with crystal chandeliers and the jewelry of Seattle's elite, all of whom he could either buy out or destroy with a single phone call. "Mr. Reeves, the mayor would like a word," Dominic murmured, appearing at his side with the practiced stealth of a personal assistant who had survived 5 years with the most feared CEO in the tech industry. "5 minutes, then we're leaving," Julian replied, checking his platinum watch. "I have the Singapore investors' call at 9. "On a Saturday night?" Dominic raised an eyebrow, then quickly resumed his neutral expression when Julian shot him a glacial look. "Money doesn't sleep, Dominic. Neither do I." Julian moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations on Meridian Technologies' latest acquisition, a small AI firm he'd snatched for a fraction of its worth after strategically tanking their stock. The business papers called him ruthless. He preferred efficient. As he finished his obligatory chat with the mayor, Julian headed for the exit. That's when he nearly tripped over a small figure crouched behind a potted palm. "Watch where you're," he began sharply, then stopped. A little girl with tear-stained cheeks looked up at him, her small hands clutching a stuffed rabbit. She wore a blue dress with silver stars, and her dark hair was tied with matching ribbons that had come partially undone. "I can't find my mommy," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the orchestra. Julian glanced around impatiently, looking for security or a frantic parent. Seeing neither, he awkwardly crouched down, his custom suit pulling tight across his broad shoulders. "Where did you last see her?" he asked, his usual commanding tone softening slightly. "By the cake table," the girl sniffled, her small fingers, 5 on each hand, just like any child, gripping her rabbit tighter. "I followed a butterfly." Julian sighed. He could call security, but the incompetent rent-a-cops would probably make the child cry more. "What's your name?" "Lily Chen," she replied, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "Well, Lily Chen, I'm Julian. Let's find your mother." To his surprise, she placed her tiny hand in his as they stood. The trust in her gesture was unsettling. It had been years since anyone had looked at Julian without fear or calculation. They walked through the ballroom, Julian's imposing presence causing crowds to part. Several people did double takes at the sight of the notorious Shark of Silicon Sound, hand in hand with a small child. "Mr. Reeves, is everything all right?" Dominic caught up with them, eyes widening at the unexpected scene. "We're looking for this child's mother." "Last name Chen, check the guest list," Julian ordered. "Mommy designs buildings," Lily volunteered, her tears drying. "Big ones that touch the sky." "An architect," Julian translated for Dominic. Cross-reference with local firms. As Dominic worked his phone, Julian awkwardly stood with Lily. When she shivered slightly, he removed his jacket and draped it around her small shoulders, where it hung like a royal robe. "You have kind eyes," Lily said suddenly, looking up at him. Julian blinked in surprise. In 15 years of business, no one had ever used the word kind to describe any part of him. Before he could respond, a woman's voice cut through the crowd. "Lily!" "Oh my God, Lily!" Julian turned to see a striking woman in an emerald dress rushing toward them, relief transforming her face. As she dropped to her knees to embrace her daughter, Julian found himself momentarily transfixed by the pure emotion in her tear-filled eyes. For just an instant, something long dormant stirred in his chest. Ripples of change. Machen clutched her daughter tightly, her heart still racing from the panic of losing sight of Lily in the crowded gala. "Thank you so much," she said, looking up at the tall man in the expensive suit. Recognition dawned slowly as she took in his chiseled features and steel-gray eyes. "You're Julian Reeves." "I am," he replied, his deep voice matter-of-fact. May stood, smoothing her emerald dress with slender hands. "I'm May Chen. I've read about you in the business section." She didn't add what. She'd read that he was a corporate predator who devoured struggling companies without mercy. "Your daughter mentioned, you're an architect," Julian said, surprisingly making no move to leave. "Yes, with Larson and Associates. We designed the new public library." May gently brushed Lily's hair back with her 5 fingers, still calming herself. "Mommy, Mr. Julian has a big building too," Lily piped up, still draped in his oversized jacket. A hint of amusement crossed Julian's face. "Meridian Tower, 38 floors. I know it well," May nodded. Elegant use of negative space in the atrium. Something flickered in Julian's expression. Surprise at her genuine professional assessment, perhaps. Dominic cleared his throat. Sir, the Singapore call. Julian checked his watch, then made a decision that surprised even himself. Reschedule it. Dominic's eyebrows shot up, but he nodded, retreating to make the call. I couldn't leave without making sure Lily was safely returned, Julian explained. Though May hadn't questioned him. Mr. Julian should have cake with us, Lily suggested, tugging at her mother's hand. He helped me find you, so he's a hero. May smiled apologetically. I'm sure Mr. Reeves has important things to do. To her surprise, Julian hesitated, then looked at Lily. Perhaps one slice. 20 minutes later, seated at a small table away from the main crowd, Julian found himself in a surreal situation. He was eating chocolate cake with a chattering 5-year-old and her mother, who studied him with thoughtful eyes. Mommy, look. He has a picture like Daddy, Lily suddenly exclaimed, pointing to Julian's phone, which had lit up with a notification. The lock screen showed a vintage motorcycle, a 1967 Triumph Bonneville. Julian stiffened. May looked mortified. Lily, that's not appropriate, she corrected softly. But Daddy had the same motorcycle in his picture, Lily insisted. I apologize, May said to Julian. My husband passed away 2 years ago. He restored vintage motorcycles. Lily saw a photo of him with his Triumph. Julian's cold facade cracked slightly. No need to apologize. I restored this one myself. You work on motorcycles? May couldn't hide her surprise. A hobby, he replied, unexpectedly adding, it helps me think. Later that evening, as his driver took him home to his penthouse, Julian found himself thinking about May's graceful hands, her intelligent eyes, and the way she'd laughed at something Lily said, a sound so genuine it had momentarily transported him away from his calculated world. When Dominic texted about the rescheduled call, Julian made another uncharacteristic decision. He had Dominic send May Chen an invitation to bring Lily to the motorcycle exhibition at the Vintage Motor Museum that weekend. He told himself it was merely professional courtesy. He almost believed it. Walls coming down, the motorcycle exhibition was nothing like Julian's usual Saturday. Instead of poring over market projections in his sterile penthouse, he found himself pointing out rare vintage models to an enthusiastic Lily, who skipped alongside him with boundless energy. Is that one like yours? She asked, her small finger pointing to a gleaming Triumph. Mine's older, Julian explained, surprised by his own patience. From 1967. May walked beside them, casually elegant in jeans and a burgundy sweater. Lily's father would have loved this, she said softly. Thank you for inviting us. Julian nodded, unaccustomed to genuine gratitude. At Meridian, people either feared him or wanted something from him. This felt different. As they stopped for ice cream, another departure from Julian's regimented routine, Lily suddenly asked, Why don't you smile, Mr. Julian? May began to admonish her daughter, but Julian interrupted gently. It's a fair question, he said, then looked at Lily. I suppose I forgot how. That's silly, Lily giggled. It's easy, she demonstrated with a chocolate-smeared grin. To May's astonishment, Julian's lips curved upward in response. A small but genuine smile that transformed his face, reaching his eyes and softening the hard lines around them. Later, while Lily was distracted by a motorcycle simulator, May asked the question that had been bothering her. Why did the notorious Julian Reeves spend his Saturday with us? The business world calls you the shark of Silicon Sound. Julian's smile faded. He considered deflecting, but instead found himself speaking truth. My father built a company from nothing. When I was 12, his partner betrayed him, stole everything. My father, he paused. He couldn't bear it. Left my mother and me with nothing but debts. May's eyes widened at this unexpected vulnerability. I rebuilt everything, Julian continued, his voice hardening, and made sure no one could ever take it away again. At what cost? May asked softly, her eyes meeting his. Before he could answer, Lily bounded back, exclaiming, I drove a motorcycle. That evening, after dropping them home, Julian sat in his silent penthouse overlooking the Seattle skyline. His phone buzzed with a text from May, a photo of Lily holding a drawing she'd made of the three of them at the museum. For the first time in years, the Ruthless CEO felt something crack in the ice around his heart. Meanwhile, across town, Lily pulled out an old photo of her father on his motorcycle, and placed it beside her drawing of Julian. "They both have kind eyes, Mommy," she whispered before falling asleep. May gently stroked her daughter's hair with tender fingers, wondering about the wounded man behind Julian Reeves' carefully constructed armor. Truth and trust. 3 weeks later, Julian had become an unexpected fixture in May and Lily's lives. Sunday brunches, evening walks along the waterfront, and impromptu visits to May's current architectural project site had gradually softened the hard edges of the businessman known for his cutthroat tactics. At Meridian Technologies, rumors swirled about the CEO's changed behavior. He'd rejected 2 aggressive acquisitions and actually smiled during a board meeting. Events so unprecedented that one veteran executive checked the company's stock for unusual activity. Only Dominic understood what was happening. He'd seen the photos on Julian's desk, Lily at the zoo, May laughing as she pointed out a design feature on a building. "The Chen proposal is ready for your review," Dominic said, placing a folder on Julian's desk. Julian had commissioned May's firm to redesign Meridian's satellite office, a professional courtesy, he claimed, though Dominic suspected otherwise. As Julian reached for the folder, his office door burst open. Victoria Hargrove strode in, her stiletto heels clicking aggressively on the marble floor. "Julian, darling, we need to talk," she announced, ignoring Dominic completely. Julian's expression instantly hardened. "Victoria, I don't recall an appointment." "Old flames don't need appointments," she purred, settling uninvited into a chair. Her sleek blonde hair and predatory smile had once appealed to Julian, back when their brief relationship had served his business purposes. "Dominic, reschedule my afternoon," Julian said, his voice cold. "Ms. Hargrove won't be staying long." Once alone, Victoria didn't bother with pretense. "I heard you're dating some widowed architect." "How quaint." Julian's hands, strong hands with 10 fingers that had signed countless ruthless deals, clenched into fists. "My personal life isn't your concern." "It is when you're rejecting perfectly good acquisitions," Victoria countered. "The board is worried you're losing your edge. Your little domestic fantasy with the ready-made family is affecting Meridian." "Get out," Julian growled. Victoria stood smoothing her designer dress. "Fine, but you should know I've already spoken to the board about your distraction. They're concerned enough to consider a vote of confidence." After she left, Julian sat motionless, staring at the Seattle skyline. Everything he'd built could crumble if the board lost faith. But when he looked at the photo of May and Lily, he questioned for the first time whether his empire was worth the cost. That evening, as Julian arrived at May's modest home for dinner, he was uncharacteristically quiet. "Is everything okay?" May asked as they washed dishes together later, Lily already asleep. Julian hesitated, then admitted, "There's pressure at work. The board thinks I'm changing, becoming weak." May's hands stilled in the soapy water. "And are you changing?" "Yes," he admitted, the truth surprising even himself. "But I don't know if that's good or bad for Meridian." May turned to face him, her expression serious. "The question is whether it's good for Julian." He looked at her, seeing the understanding in her eyes, and slowly leaned forward. Their lips met in a gentle kiss that deepened as her arms, slender but strong, wrapped around him, pulling him closer. For the first time, Julian Reeves didn't care about Meridian Technologies. He only cared about this moment, this woman, and the little girl asleep down the hall who had started calling him Daddy when she thought he couldn't hear. The family he never knew. He needed. The boardroom of Meridian Technologies fell silent as Julian entered, his usual intimidating presence somehow different. He stood at the head of the table, surveying the executives who had gathered for what the rumors called a vote of confidence. Victoria sat midway down, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. She had orchestrated this moment, convinced the old Julian would resurface when threatened, the shark who would sacrifice anything for power. "I understand there are concerns about my leadership," Julian began, his voice steady. "About changes in my approach." Several board members shifted uncomfortably under his gaze. "You built this company to be ruthless," Victoria interjected. "Recently, you've rejected profitable acquisitions and shown softness." Julian nodded, surprising everyone. "You're right. I have changed." He walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "I built Meridian to prove something, that I would never be vulnerable like my father was. Every company I destroyed, every competitor I crushed was another brick in a wall protecting me from weakness. He turned back to face them. But I've realized something. I built a fortress so impenetrable that nothing could hurt me. But nothing could reach me either. The board members exchanged confused glances. Julian continued. 3 months ago, I met a little girl who got lost at a charity event and a woman who designs spaces that bring people together instead of keeping them apart. They showed me what I've been missing. He pressed a button on the remote and the presentation screen displayed a new design, a revolutionary campus plan. This is Meridian's future. Not conquering through fear, but leading through innovation. Open spaces, collaboration, sustainability. This will put us years ahead of competitors focused only on acquisition. The board leaned forward, studying the designs, May's designs. You have a choice today, Julian stated firmly. Vote for my continued leadership with this new vision, or select someone else to lead Meridian back down the old path. He looked directly at Victoria. I won't be that person anymore. The vote was 8-1 in his favor. Later that evening, Julian stood on May's porch, hands in his pockets, uncharacteristically nervous. When she opened the door, he didn't wait. I love you, he said simply. You and Lily, you've shown me what matters, what's worth building. May's eyes filled with tears as she pulled him inside. We love you too, both of us. As if on cue, Lily appeared in her pajamas, rubbing sleepy eyes. Daddy, she exclaimed, running to wrap her small arms around Julian's legs. This time, he didn't stiffen at the name. Instead, he knelt down, meeting her at eye level, and wrapped his arms around her tiny frame. I brought something for you, he said softly, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a motorcycle charm. To remember your first daddy, he explained gently, and to know your second daddy isn't going anywhere. As Lily beamed, Julian turned to May, who stood watching them with shining eyes. I have something for you too, he said, producing a second, smaller box. May gasped when she opened it to find a platinum ring with a simple, elegant diamond. I don't want to replace what you had, Julian said, taking her hand in his. But I want to build something new with you. A family, a home, a life. May looked from the ring to Julian's face. No longer the cold mask of the ruthless CEO, but the warm expression of a man who had found his heart again. Yes, she whispered, as Lily danced around them in excitement. That night, as the three of them sat together looking at old photos and making plans for new memories, Julian realized that in helping a lost child, he had found himself. And in being called Daddy, he had discovered what truly mattered. Not an empire of glass and steel, but a family built on love, the one thing his money could never buy, and the one thing he now knew he couldn't live without.